Welcome to the Chase Merrell Podcast. Today I have my friend, one of my best friends, Jordan Schlegel with me. What is up, Jordan?
How you doing, Chase?
Dude, pumped to have you on the podcast, bro. This is a treat for multiple reasons. But people that don't know you, you're one of those internet dark web, don't have social media, nobody knows, you're a ghost. So you're showing your face on this place, and it's going to be shown in different places that you'll never even know.
It's an honor.
Okay, let me do this. Let me set some context for people that are listening, because you have you've had a pretty significant impact on my life. This whole podcast is about 52 conversations with 52 people who've made an impact on my life. 52 projects, what I've been calling it, right? When it comes to friendships, when it comes to people in my life, but even really in my adult life, like that's really where we were introduced. You've made a huge impact, still do, but your friendship over those years when we lived in Modesto, California, when we first got married. In fact, we moved down there and we became friends before Holly and I actually got married. So we're talking about like 11 years ago, which is nuts when I think about that. 11 years. You made a massive impact in my life. So that's why you're here, man. And I really do appreciate it. I know you're busy, and I know you just had a new baby, which I'd love to hear a little bit more about. You just recently got married, not too long ago before that world. I mean, obviously before that, but so dude, thanks for jumping in today. Can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. It's definitely an honor.
So give me a snapshot just with the season that you're in right now, and then I'm going to do like a throwback to kind of where we met. But just where are you? Give me a little bit of your family world when it comes to, like I said, marriage and having a kid. But what are you doing? Where are you at?
So I'm a recovering 32-year-old virgin. So I just got married when I was 32, about to turn 33. So. Or 31, basically I was in the 30s as a virgin. So yes. What's really matter if it was 32, 31, 33. So just been married now for about a year and a half. And we have a baby girl she is now going to be 8 weeks old. So life is awesome, and sleep is not there, and what day it is and what you're doing is all a little bit blurry. Yeah. And still in working full time at one church, and so does Brooke. So, there's also that whole side of life when you're in full-time ministry that's always a little bit crazy. So it's awesome. We love it. Feel super, super blessed. Baby's healthy and Brooke's healthy. So nothing else really matters. And life gets put in perspective when you got a little one. So it's pretty awesome.
Dude, I'll never forget getting that I don't know, I can't remember if it was a FaceTime. Did you guys I think you FaceTimed us real quick as you were driving, and like the thought of you guys being pregnant, but you getting to be a dad is nuts. It's just nuts. But so, okay, baby girl, what's her name? I just love her name. I want you to share that.
Her name is Zara Alexandria II Schlegel. And so, most people are pretty dense, and so then they say, who else is Zara? And it's like, no, the second is on the middle name, because Brooke's middle name's Alexandria. And they're like, okay, yeah, but who else in your family is Zara? Like, so I just said it's just one. I know it's unusual, but it's on the middle name, and most people, it doesn't click, and they just smile. You just smile back.
Yeah, I love the name, and it does not surprise me one bit that there's that kind of middle name associated and connected. And I'm sure she's going to love that throughout her life, having to explain that.
The alternative that I really wanted was Alexandria the Great.
Yes.
But Brooke found that to be a little offensive or something. I didn't understand that. So we landed with Alexandria II.
Oh, bro. There's one of the things that I'm hoping people will get as they get the time that we're going to have this conversation today. There really is not anybody on this planet like you in so many ways. But one of the things that unapologetically you are you. And part of what drew me, well, that hasn't been me. a lot of my life because of my own personalities and makeups. And so when we began to become friends back in 2012, I was like, this dude is him. Like, he's not trying to be anybody for anybody but himself. And it was super refreshing, but also like kind of intimidating to me. And I remember when we got to One Church to be youth pastors back in 2012, right? You were introduced to us as the facilities, like One Church facilities. I think at that time you might have still been technically facilities intern, but maybe not. Was that where you were at? Can you remember where they were?
I was just an intern, but we didn't have an intern program.
Yeah.
So then they had to like call me something a little bit more. So they're like, "Oh, you're a facilities intern." So
yeah,
that's where I was.
Yeah. So I have to, if could you give a snapshot of like that part of the testimony before stepping into there, but where we began? Because like I got you right on the other side of something pretty like significant that had happened in your life. And a lot of people probably don't know, people that know you may not know that side of you before they met you from ministry or wherever else from the last 10 to 12 years. Give us a snapshot of like the Jordan Schlegel story before all that.
Yeah. So I grew up in church, but didn't start following the Lord till I was like 18, a senior in high school. And so that's when I started actually walking with Jesus. And so then life started to get a little crazy. And so went to college, felt the Lord speak very clearly to drop out of college. And I am 50% Japanese. And so that Japanese side of the equation, that'd be about the worst thing you could do in life is drop out of college. But I felt like the Lord spoke very clearly, so I did it, and didn't have an answer as to what the next step was. And basically one thing led to the next, and I was asked to be an intern, though there wasn't the intern program, and I just figured I'd do it. I didn't feel like the Lord said to do it, but I was like, well, I'm just there's no harm in doing it. And so I said yes. And then one thing led to the next, and just kept getting another position at the church, was the facilities manager at the Modesto campus. And then one day I was asked if I wanted to do the church budget, and I had never opened Excel in my life. And I just said, sure. And so then from there, I became the executive administrator of One Church. And so I have 1 month of college to my name. When I dropped out of college, I actually made $382 from going to college because I had a few small scholarships.
Which is also the most Jordan Schlegel thing ever. Like, hey, you know what? I'm actually gonna get something from you. So
they paid me for my 1 month at their university. And since then, my degree is in life and in praying to the sweet Lord Jesus to help me know what to do.
Yeah.
And then Google something and then go in and act like you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So there's multiple parts here. Firstly, you mentioned this briefly, but just to touch on it from a little bit of what I know, and maybe you could speak into it a little bit. You were raised in a Christian home, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part, like your parents knew and loved Jesus for most of your life or all of your life. And then even in high school, we're at a Christian's, or maybe how long did you go to Modesto Christian? Was that just high school or was that before?
5th grade all the way through. So I was homeschooled up to 5th grade, and I started at Modesto Christian in 5th grade, and that's where I graduated.
Right. So, but you said 18. It wasn't until 18 or so that you really like gave your life to Jesus. So like, what were those years of like, being raised in a Christian home, being at a Christian school, and but not knowing or really following Jesus for you? Like what happened that shifted that to that 18? Like what was that moment or moments that led to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just something that I always knew, just like a subject of math or science. And so I knew memory verses, went to church, did all the things, but it just wasn't a personal relationship with Jesus. And so there's no other way to replace that. Either you have a real relationship or you don't. And something when I was a senior in high school that just really clicked, that I knew a lot of the things, but I didn't actually have a relationship with Christ. It wasn't like a living part of my life. And I figured I should try that,
Yeah.
and I never doubted that those were good things or that God was real, but it just wasn't real to me as a person.
Yeah.
So, at some point I just had to face within myself. I was like, either all these people are bat-ish crazy or
Right.
it's real,
Or it's real.
and if it's
Totally.
real, then I want to try that for myself, because
Right.
this is a good thing, right? And so
Yeah.
I was like, it's either I gotta just figure it out for myself. And so
Yeah.
then you just gave it a real shot, and obviously God knows you more than you
Yeah.
know yourself, knows exactly what you need. And so it just came to life, and was filled with the Holy Spirit, and plenty of things highlighted, apologize to this person, do this,
Yeah.
do that. I mean, just a real humorous thing of a come to Jesus moment, even though you've been at church your whole life,
Right.
And so it was revolutionary for me. And hearing the Lord speak to you on a personal level, to where, you know, the whole world could tell you didn't hear that or sense that, and it doesn't matter. Like, I know I heard that from God. So
Yeah.
like, it just life got real on that front, right in that 18-year-old senior in high school
Yeah.
season of life for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some comments I remember your mom would make when I was just getting there about like trying to explain a little bit of who you were to me, and just how crazy it was at that point that you were not only like kind of working slash volunteering at the church, but that wasn't who you were, was not who you were in that moment, was not who you were, throughout along a lot of those years, and that she had been praying, for
Yeah.
God to really make himself real to you. But that's one of the things that I want to point out, because there's a lot of people, that when it comes to their faith, when it comes to faith in general, like I've got guys that are listening to this podcast that I'm in relationship with or friendship with, even from like the gym, which we'll definitely talk about in a bit too, that aren't Christians and don't follow Jesus. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they rub up against not liking the concept of people telling them what is true or not true, unless it's something they really believe for themselves. And that was something that I recognized about your experience, is no one was going to convince you unless it was something you actually believed in and experienced for yourself. And so like that, I don't know. I don't want that to get lost or under. I want it to be reiterated as people would listen. Like there's something about that personal experience and encounter that really is what people have got to have for there to be something real when it comes to like faith in relationship with Jesus stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, people get all weirded out with the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues. That's like, Christianity on steroids. But
Yeah.
I grew up in those environments. So though it's still weird, some level of it was normal to me. So I had seen people, get slain in the spirit and fall over and things like that. Right. I remember that. And so I had never experienced that for myself. And I was actually coming from the gym in a particular service. And so I'm in gym clothes at a small church night service. And I remember going to the front when they kind of had an altar call of that sort and thinking like, I will not go down, period. Yeah. Like I had let me widen my stance. Let me get a little bend in my knees. Like I'm in high school. I'm an athlete. Like I'm not just going to like fall over.
Yeah.
And I dropped. I mean, so even that detail, I specifically remember thinking like, I'm not going up close, stiff as a board. And right. I could kind of get like pushed over or something. No shot. You know, if I'm going down, it's got to be for real. Yeah. And like, so I go in with this mindset of like, I will not go down, like I'm not just going with this stuff or whatever. Like, I don't even know if I really believe it for myself.
Right.
And I got dropped, like, and so those experiences too, like where it's like real, like I remember my thought process. I'm not looking at the others and being swayed by the moment or this or that. I'm trying to, in essence, stand in obstinance to it. Like, so that's a moment too that I'll never forget. It was real.
Right. So before jumping into like post that season, one of the things that I'd love, like, how do you not only maintain, let me actually pitch it like this. I've had a few of those moments in my life as well. And I'm sure people listening, some of them have as well. it seems like at times those moments can be few and far between, or those like encounter moments that they're real. Like there's nobody, no one else can explain it away. You can't justify. It's like, it's real and you know it. How even at this stage in your life, 10, 15 years later from maybe in that season, do you still position yourself or still pursue like having real encounters with God so that it does stay real for you? Like, what does that look like? How has that been a part of your life, or is it a part of your life right now?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think there's seasons of all of life. And so what happened in the past in that specific encounter, more than likely it won't be that same encounter down the road. Sometimes that's the way the Lord so moves, but it looks and it feels different as you grow and mature, and as the call in your life is even different and your influence is different. And so I've wrestled, probably like with any human, of like, oh, it's not like it was before, but then your eyes are open to see life in a different way. Yeah. And so it's definitely part of my life now. I pursue it. I'm more intentional about it. I'm probably not as obstinate to it, you know. And so I think the Lord opens your eyes on much more of a micro level, and not always needing it on the macro level of, you know, this big experience. You know, I think you see the Lord opening opportunities and encounters in the smallest of things in your life. And so I think that's been a pivotal thing for me, is to see those things and give God the glory for those things, and not write them off as coincidence or something that I'm just doing on my own means or power.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. So you had a radical encounter really that opened your eyes to who God was, power of God, Holy Spirit stuff, that you're like, no, this is for real. And here we go. And part of that really changed the trajectory of your future. You know, like you mentioned, like dropping out of college, really counter to what maybe the expectations were at that point, or what people's hopes for what would make sense. And so when I showed up to Modesto in 2012, you know, like you were there at the church in that space. And the thing that I began to experience as I got to know you a little bit there was, oh, this dude's like fully surrendering his like life to the Lord, like to the point where he was like, yeah, no, I had good grades and some scholarships, and but I felt like God said to step out of college to just kind of be available to whatever he wanted me to do. And at this point, the only next step he gave me was to go and serve and be a part of this church that you'd grown up in, but there was some transition, new leaders. My youth pastor from high school, Kyle and Marcia Bethke, had just become the new lead pastors, and that was how we came down there. You were just getting to know them. And so now we've got that piece in our lives. Like, obviously you're still there on their team. And, you know, so you've had just as much time, actually now more probably, than I have over my years. So we have that bond. But like, I realized like this dude's actually surrendered. Yeah. This dude's actually surrendered to Jesus. There's a picture of him back there. Him and Marcia are, I'm hoping to have them, well, not hoping, they're going to be guests on here, but, we're shooting for an episode later in the year, maybe even in person. So I've been hunting him down. But man, okay. So that surrender though was, I don't know how else to say it. It was odd to me. Like it was uncommon. I didn't really believe it for a while. Like I thought to myself, there's got to be more to the story here. Like this dude, this was my initial like perspective of you, which I know some of your initial perspectives of me, but I remember thinking to myself, like, there's no way this dude just like dropped out of college to just be here serving at this church. Like, who would do that? Why would you throw so much of that life away, in my mind, to some degree, with like your time? And you were there all day. Like, it wasn't like you were just serving a couple hours. You were giving your life, and you weren't doing the like nice have coffee with this guy, pastor him and counsel him guy. You were like cleaning clogged toilets kind of stuff, and worse. And so I was looking around going like, maybe there's more to this story that people aren't telling me. Like, maybe this dude's like, you know, he's I don't know, rehabbing something that, like, you know, but I very quickly discovered, like, no, this was legit. This dude's literally been impacted by God in a real way and is like literally living out the Christian experience of surrendering his life and future to the Lord. And it like just blew me away because I hadn't seen something like that with somebody in my season. You know, you're a year older than me, I think, right? Yeah,
Few years.
a year or two. I feel like you were the same age as Holly, but maybe you're a year older than her, which would be two.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
Yeah. So I mean
it's all right. I'm really good at math.
Totally. But so I mean that was part of my first impression and once I realized that I was like, I got to get around this guy. I want this guy on my team. I want him around Holly and I in our ministry. Like he's the real deal, and I have a lot to learn from him. And so I tried to like, you know, what was the word? Bribe you into like joining my adult leader team. Like, what can I do? I remember you were painting the youth room at one point, and I was coming in like, okay, what do I need to say to convince this guy that I want him on my youth team? And I don't even remember what I said, but I walked away from that moment feeling like there's just no way he's going to do it. Like he's probably like, nah. but then you did. A couple of days later, you came back and you're like, I'm in. And that really kind of was the start. But you may have had your impressions of me in the beginning may not actually have changed that much over the course of our friendship, but I knew you had some.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty simple. It was just very basic of like, this guy's way too nice. He's going to get eaten alive by these little teenagers.
Yeah.
And, there's some truth in that, and I don't know how much has changed since that initial read,
Yeah, no, I'm just getting eaten alive by full grown adults now in the ministry space. But man, so one of the things that I feel like you mentioned kind of you started, facility stuff and then just continue to have opportunities kind of come your way that, you didn't necessarily seek out, but because you had been really faithful and willing to do whatever it took to serve, but also help the mission kind of moving forward. You just kind of found yourself in places that were outside of your experience or even potentially qualifications. And yet the Lord has used you and given you a lot of favor and not just to like survive the role, but to like really contribute and enhance and make better the situation that you were handed multiple times over and over and over. I think about your life a lot like Joseph to some degree, not that I'm painting the season that you're in or have been in, like the season that, Joseph was in with like being thrown in a pit or imprisoned or whatever. But the same parallel of like, this dude didn't ask for any of these things. And yet in each one of those places and spaces or roles, he was just really faithful and trusting the Lord in those moments to do what he could with what God gave him. And then God just continued to elevate him. Can you talk about your version of that? Like how you've seen that play out in your life? And, I think a lot of people in life look at like, how do I get to the next place by, this stepping stone or jumping up in this way to try to get up to the top. You haven't done that. And yet God's really elevated you to the top, if you will. What's your view of this?
Yeah. I mean, I think with that initial massive step of obedience to drop out of college, I almost feel like it was easier for me. Like, I don't have a single qualification of man to do anything. Like literally there's not a single job that like I have on a piece of paper the qualifications for. I have 1 month. I graduated high school, but like that's all I have on paper. And so in some ways I feel like it was easy for me to just understand that I have tried to sign my life over to God, and whatever role it is, it doesn't matter. I said yes to that initial step. So whatever the next steps are, they don't matter. Up, down, sideways. I'm doing my best to say, here's my life, and the trajectory of man of a ladder going up or something, I'm saying no to, and I said no to that by dropping out of college. So yeah. I feel like in some ways it was actually fairly easy for me to just know I already did the deed. Like there's not even any going back. Like, I mean, yeah, I could go back to college and restart that wheel, but like right now I've got nothing. And so if it's facilities, great. And if it's, this, whatever. Like it was simple to me to, because I didn't have anything to fall back on. So, you know,
Right.
it really was just this basic thing. And then as I have progressed, it's all the more humorous of like, I don't know that I have, I
Sure.
mean, facilities interns that's a pretty sweet gig, like you
Sure.
swing the hammer and the thing go,
Yeah.
so
Right.
it's just funny that the things that we get in our head of what advancing is, it's not. And I
Yeah.
mean, you hear those cliches and this and that, but like, just being in obedience with the Lord is truly all that matters. And the position moving or pay moving or title moving, they're just all things. And like,
Yeah.
there's no real substance to those things. And if I can't look in the mirror and say I'm doing my best to obey what God's called me to do, then I don't want any part of it,
Yeah.
and that has nothing to do with our definitions of advancement or up or down or anything like that. So in my flesh, I'm more jealous to go back to that facilities intern role.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I've heard people say that, but I have not actually seen a lot of them live that out over a period of time like I've seen you do that. Like that's part of the difference that I when I think about who you are, that I go, people will say that conceptually, or like, they'll say that from a fundamental belief, but yet their life doesn't match it. They're trying to find or get up to the, but you really have had that. I mean, 12 to 13, 14 years that I've known you, that's been your consistent track record. And so like, I mean, yeah, just so to encourage you in that, bro, because most, and I don't, there's not a person that would disagree with me. Everybody that knows you and has been around you, that they get the same Jordan. There isn't a chameleon duplicitous dude that comes in and out and is, I mean, you are the president of the United States, could walk in the room and you're gonna have the same unfiltered joke or comment that you would for somebody that's been your best friend for 20 years. And again, I love that about you because it's authentic, and although there's definitely things I couldn't say that you say, you that's it. You've been that consistent piece. But back to that, what you just said, I think that is so good and challenging. And that's what I got to experience living day to day next to you for 5.5 years in Modesto. What I'd love to do just for a moment, not everybody enjoys this because they just don't. And I know I don't, but regardless, I don't care if you will or not enjoy it. So I want to rattle a few things off that when I think about you, I go, this is what like not only makes me want to be more like him, but it challenges me to be a better man, a follower of Jesus, etc. But they're just things that I recognize are kind of under that category of uncommon, and I want to highlight them. And then if you've got comments about them, you can, but just sit back and receive it. Okay, here we go. But one of them is that your attention to detail with people when it comes to the care that you have expressed and displayed for myself and Holly, and then our family. But then I know we're just on the long list of people that you've done this for and continue to do this for. I've shared this story before, but it's one of the ones that stuck in my heart, in my mind forever. But you borrowed my truck when I first got there for some, church related thing. And I don't know what, it was probably some dump around or some pickup or whatever. And I came back and, I got back in my truck and my gas was full. And it was just this moment of like, it wasn't something I was expecting in any way, but you took that little extra detail to go, and that was like one of 10,000 things that you found a way to do that wasn't just talk. It wasn't just words. It was like, it was action and expressing love and care in a way that was a detail to the things you've handmade. Like I've got a pour over coffee station back there. That's in every one of my episodes that are on Zoom. That you handmade and handcrafted, one of many things you made. But that for me has always been so challenging because it takes time. It takes preparation. It takes calculation. It takes investment or sacrifice. And it's not flippant. And I just think a lot of people don't have the space or margin in their life to allow that kind of care to come out of them because of that, because of the busyness or the speed or pace that they live. And that to this day is ingrained in me. Like how I can care for people a lot of the time is it's like Jesus is, ultimate standard, right? But then there's like the human in-person level that I can go up to and go, what could have or would have Jordan done here to make somebody feel cared for or loved? Been something that's still challenging me to this day. That's one. The other one is the consistency, bro. I don't know a more consistent person in my life that I've met. Especially under 50. Like, there might be some older generation, men and women who have you because they've been doing it longer. But and this is where I want to kind of talk about the gym in a moment. But like the way you would every single day, did not matter time or place, you brought your food or some form of food to eat in our meetings at the church. And it was always like a spread of like fresh vegetables and like different kinds of proteins and like a utensil kit. And it was always like slow and like I watched you enjoy your food like nobody else, but it was consistent and it didn't matter what the frick was going on. You were doing it. And that was like just a glimpse into the disciplined life that you'd had for so many days and years that I knew you. And again, I have had such a struggle with discipline in my life. I get these high moments of discipline, going to the gym, eating healthy, whatever. And then, but would come back down for whatever thing and then come back. And for 5.5 years, you were always this bar of consistency that would be like, cool, Chase. I'm glad you're doing that. I've been doing it for 15 years and I'm going to keep doing it whether you do it or not. But the gym really became a place for you and I that we spent a lot of time together talking and hanging out. And again, you'd been doing it for a long time, but the gym has been something that, so much a part of your life. Can you give that snapshot? Like, why has that been such a piece of who you are? What do you love about it? How does it impact your life when it comes to working out and the gym?
Well, first I'll comment on the initial filling up your truck with gas, that you were a douche and had to have a truck and it cost like, $175 to fill that tank up, and, on a little facility stipend, it's a little stings, stings on that one. Yes. The gym, I guess, just even as a kid growing up, you're playing sports, and so you just want your body to be in good shape, and so just started working out like a lot of kids would do. And I just remember from a young age, I think the first time I was in the gym was when I was 11, and then I started really kind of more so working out by 13ish, and so I just remember looking around the gym and seeing adults of all different phases and proportions of life.
Yes.
And I just remember thinking like, I don't want to be that guy that's coming in when you're 50s, 60s and never spent an ounce of taking care of your physical body, and just seeing that struggle and just seeing other people that were maybe a little more familiar with the gym and just seeing how the literal difference in how they're moving around in the gym. I just remember thinking like, if I can, like, I'd rather stay in a spot where I'm doing what I can, and that from that, I also remember at a young age of just learning that truth of like, do the things that I can control. I can't control how tall I am. The Lord made me a certain height. I can't control.
Amen.
I can't control that, but I can control my physical fitness by what I input in that department. And I just always remember just trying to be just the strongest or best shape of myself. Any of us are looking at others and comparing and doing all those things, but I quickly learned like, well, I'm a skinny guy, and so I could do anything I want on this planet, and I'm not going to be 250 pounds, I think I could take straight steroids and I want to be 250. So like you just, there was that whole comparison kind of went out the door, and just very quickly I just learned to compete against myself and that be my driving force. And I think that's also how I don't really have those ups and downs, because I'm not doing it for any other reason other than to just be the strongest and best and growing version of myself that I can be. And I got to show up in order to answer that honestly. There's no, it's a very basic, you show up or you don't show up in that equation. And so I just think through the years, I've just tried to figure out a way to show up. And seasons of life, it's different. Sometimes you got more time, sometimes you got less time, and just finding a way to stay going, even if it's 20 minutes. I think a lot of people fade if it wasn't, I don't get to lift the way I used to get to lift. You're in a different season of life, and so figure out what you can in this season and just go with that. And so seasons change, and it changes faster than you realize, and so you can't get too up or too down on whatever it is currently.
That place of not comparing yourself with, or being able to accept and acknowledge your limitations with your body type, or just that reality. And then like, okay, well, I'm not going to compare myself to the other people in this place, because this is what I've got. So I'm competing with myself. Thinking about that was so true. I never got an ounce of, or a smell of like that you were worried about any of that. Again, something that like, again, I think people say, but you don't actually see it really true in their life, because it's just, you can see it come out in different ways. I never saw that. Like, it was legitimately true. But what was so funny about that was that every single time we'd be working out, somebody would come up, somebody would go over and be like, how are you doing this? Like, how did you get that muscle on that part of your body that there shouldn't be that kind of muscle there? Like, there shouldn't be 3 muscles there. How'd you do that? Bigger dudes, like guys that were like, trying to, and then so that concept to me always stood out too. Like, you were authentically, you weren't trying to please anybody or impress anybody. You were competing with yourself, but that was what was impressive. Like, that was what was actually drawing people to you in that way. And so that's principally something else. Like, I think I really saw stand out about who you are. And I really respect it about you. Cause talk about one of the most plaguing things of our generation and younger, but people in general, especially with social media and all that, which you don't have, but is the comparison world, and people always inundated with thinking about looking like, being like, experiencing like other people that they're watching and seeing. And you didn't ever worry about that. And yet they were the ones that were like, teach me, I'll just never forget those kind of things.
I have noticed too. I mean, any area of passion in your life like that you are putting effort and time into, like, you also quickly, you have to get to a place to know it's not just about you either. Like, the amount of conversations I do get to have with these dudes that are scary looking guys or whatever it may be, like, I don't get that opportunity built in to normal life when I'm at work in a suit, right? But when I'm at the gym, there's people that need Jesus, and a door is opened simply by a passion of my life, a byproduct of that passion, and I get to speak and have relationship with people that don't know Jesus at all, in a whole different lane. It's just a completely different sphere of everything else in my day-to-day life is that time at the gym.
Right.
And I've gotten to invite one of my friends currently there that's tatted up and everything, and he came to Easter service and sat in the front row, and awesome. When I invited him, he said, "Church, that's some effing good ish to get in you, huh?" And I was like, yeah, that's basically the way I look at it,
Bro, that's the next campaign slogan for Easter 2023.
It's like, can you say that one more time? So yeah, I just think too, like, any of those areas of passion, you truly look at the ways to make it be about other people too, about finding Jesus, even just on a relational level. Like, they'll come talk to me, and then eventually, like, I follow Jesus, and that comes out,
Right.
So it's been really cool to see how that has played out in life.
Yeah. When you think about where you are when you think about where you want to go in life, to some degree, I know, you live pretty principled day by day in like, again, but thinking about people that really live out seize the day, you don't have, nothing's guaranteed tomorrow kind of thing. So live today to the fullest has, again, been one of those things I've watched you do for years. But I want to get into that question, kind of getting close to wrapping this conversation up around stuff that you feel like, what has held Jordan Schlegel back from being who he knows God's made him to be? And like, how have you navigated that and even overcome some of that to where you are today? Because I mean, if people take a step back and look at your life, it doesn't appear like there's very much that holds you back. That whether it's external or internal, you've got, I mean, looking at the way you're dressed right now, like this is true to who you, I mean, there's like you classy, dressed up for, doesn't matter what the occasion, like you come into the environment like this is me, right? But so even that, somebody would look at you and go like, well, the dude's crushing it. He's living, nothing's holding him back. He's confident. He's secure. He's, and that now some of the things that have been longings for a long time, he's married, he's starting a family, like, but is there something, and how have you navigated the stuff that's held you back from being who you were made to be? Speak to that maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think that comparison thing of like, we're all human. Like we know that everybody's human, but still somehow in our brain, we think, yeah, that person's got it together. That person's a mess or whatever it may be. But it truly is an equal playing field. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Everybody's got the same insecurities and tensions. It's just a different flavor with that person. And there are different seasons where maybe it's more of a struggle or less. But I mean, yeah, I'm a mere mortal. So the comparison things, is it worth it? The inner doubts, fears, all those things it's the same battle for me. It's no different. I think, in order for me to stay consistent, it doesn't just happen on its own. It's still a battle to keep that line. And that battle is above it and below that line, given the topic in the season. So, what am I still doing here? I'm still in Modesto, all those things of like, maybe it's not advancement up a corporate ladder, but still just like, why am I still here? Like, did the Lord actually call me here? Like all those things, those are all, I mean, I'm battling through all that 24/7, I mean, in different versions and capacities, or just, yeah, why am I working so much? What's the point of this? Even the gym, even though I love it, like, why am I still going to the gym? I know exactly how strong I am and I can push it, but I still, at this point, I kind of know the range that's kind of possible. So like, what's the point? All those things are still going on internally. You're fighting those battles inside for sure. And so, I think a lot of the way I'm structured is to internalize things. And so, even something as simple as sleep is not a guaranteed for me, as I'm processing a lot of things and fighting a lot of working through things in my head, whether it's a good thing or a difficult thing. So, that's a lifelong battle for sure. And, you navigate those things. And though those blessings come with marriage and a kid, those cliche things that we've heard our whole lives, they're very true. That doesn't check the box of now I'm fulfilled. It's there is fulfillment in it, but the box is never checked. It's only the Lord. It's only Jesus. And if anything, you just made your equation more complicated in a good way and in a challenging way. So, it's that I've enjoyed that season that I'm in right now, but back to like what I said before of like, that intern facility gig,
it seems
thing seems pretty sweet, that single life and life is simple. So
energy drinks, nothing is nothing to worry about, but how my fantasy football team is doing. And I mean, that's not much has changed there, obviously. Let's
there
be
you
honest.
Go. Yeah. Talking about consistency, consistently beating you in fantasy football is up there on my fulfillment list of life. But
Dude,
there's the backs and forth. That's fantasy football.
get out of here, bro. Get out of here. Uh, the one, this is I forgot to ask this earlier, and I don't want to end before it, because this one is something I've had Riley Silva, my buddy, mutual friend, for the last 5.5 years, even being, or 6 years being here in Olympia, when people like ask me whatever, like I have two best friends, Jordan Schlegel and Riley Silva, so they know of those two dudes. And one of those things that Riley and I talked about on our conversation was just around the God's timing, and how in the way that you opened up this conversation about being a 31 or 32-year-old virgin, and that idea of getting married and maybe later than you would have wanted to or thought you were going to, and yet now here you are, married to an incredible woman, and a baby that you guys made together that is beautiful. Like, if you've got something that when you think about that, you think about that journey of the waiting and then God's timing and what you're in now, for the person that maybe is in a similar season or in a similar place of discouragement or hopelessness, how would you encourage them, or what would you say to that based on walking the journey personally, for a long time, for those years, and then being where you are now?
I think I'd say you are stuck, you are screwed. Life is difficult, I mean,
perfect. I can clip that perfect for an Instagram reel. And so that's perfect.
I mean, I think all those cliches we all live by, especially as Christians, there really is a ton of truth to them. But like, I think it's, there's trade-offs in every season. And so there's the challenges when you're single and desiring that marriage relationship or a family. And then there's challenges on the other side of the equation once you have those things. So like, you don't get out of the challenges. And so that we focus so much on that because we are human and God created us flesh and blood, and that's a real part of us. But like, walking with Jesus and being obedient, it's everything. If you're doing that while you're single, life is good. And if you're doing that when you're married, life is good. And if you're not doing it in either side, life's going to be terrible, and it might feel okay or for a quick moment, but things fall apart. And you've only, as I said earlier, you're only adding complications to your equation when there's more people in the equation, and when you have a wife and you have kids, there's more to it. And so, truly doing everything you can, bottle up those emotions and energies to be content, and work at that. It's not something you just say. You got to put in the work, just like you got to put in the work when you're married. Like, it's not just all lovey-dovey. There's those seasons naturally, and then you got to work at it, and so it doesn't change. The encouragement is encouragement and discouragement. Like, life is life. You serve the Lord in all that you do. The pivotal moments that we pinpoint on our calendar in our life in eternity, they don't even exist. It's just a man-made, it's just a Google Calendar thing. Like, so walk with Jesus, be honest with yourself and others and Jesus. Like, don't act like you're not feeling those things, but don't like give in, and put that on the pedestal. You're just as important and loved by God. And we would say that when you're single as you are when you're married, but we act as if it's not, but it really is true. You're just as called, you have just as much purpose and meaning and all those things. And if anything, in one hand, you're more potent when you're on your own. It's simple. I heard God, I go do it, and not that we aren't called to live that way with a family, but you got an extra hoop to jump through.
There's
an extra
more
relationship
factors
to bring along. And when you're single, boom, you're quick, you're agile, so there's just, it's trade-offs, and there's meaning on both sides. It doesn't get easier on either side. There's its challenges, and there'll be challenges on the other side.
So good. Boom. Well, dude, I can't communicate enough just how much you've meant to me over the years, and still are. I mean, I think about this life, the short blip that it is on the spectrum of eternity. having the opportunity to have some just really meaningful friendship, like not just, those surface events or I mean, all night long kind of stuff, like in my garage, fixing and putting drywall, to, trips to on the roof of the church, trying to shoot and scare pigeons. I mean, bro, I'm telling you, the depths of gratitude in my heart for the memories and the things that we've gotten to have together. I'm so thankful for. And I just, there's a lot that the Lord deposited in my life in that season in Modesto, and he used some great people to do that. But one of the most significant was you, and getting to see you be a husband and a dad, even from afar now, brings me and Holly a lot of joy. And we really love you and Brooke and Zara, and can't wait to meet her. I can't wait to hold her. So thanks for joining me today and taking your time to be here. I know people are going to be challenged and encouraged by this conversation, and I can't wait to see you in person. And again, get to see your little baby. So thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it, man.
It's an honor. Love you, man.
Love you too. Until next time, thanks for listening.